Still waiting at the cafe? Sorry, found more exciting plans, she messaged while flaunting club stories. I responded, all good. Then I erased her completely. Looking back, I should have seen it coming when someone starts treating your anniversary like an inconvenience they can reschedule for better opportunities, but sometimes you're so invested in believing the best about someone that you ignore the patterns screaming right in front of your face. I'm Ryan Mitchell, 29, a marine biologist working on coral reef restoration research at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego, and for 18 months I'd been dating Stella Martinez, a food blogger with 90,000 Instagram followers who specialized in sustainable dining content and ocean-to-table culinary experiences that perfectly aligned with my environmental mission, or so I thought. We met at the Pacific Ocean Conservation Gala in Del Mar, one of those black tie events where marine scientists mingle with environmental donors and sustainability advocates, the kind of networking nightmare I usually avoided but attended because I was presenting my research on innovative coral restoration techniques. I'd spent the evening explaining my propagation methods to potential funders, discussing how we could combat reef die-offs through targeted intervention, when Stella approached me after my presentation with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm about marine conservation. She wasn't just another influencer looking for content, she asked thoughtful questions about coral biodiversity, climate change impacts, and the connection between sustainable seafood choices and ocean health that impressed me with her apparent depth of knowledge. Your work could change everything, she said, her dark eyes bright with interest as we talked beside the silent auction display. People need to understand that saving coral reefs isn't just about pretty underwater photos, it's about preserving entire ecosystems that millions of species depend on. That night, we ended up at Luna Cafe in La Jolla, sitting at a corner table overlooking the moonlit Pacific while she promised to help amplify marine conservation through her growing platform, reaching audiences who might never otherwise care about reef restoration. She had this way of making me feel like my research mattered beyond academic circles, like together we could bridge the gap between scientific discovery and public awareness, using her storytelling skills to translate complex marine biology into content that actually inspired people to protect our oceans. I want to help you change the world through science and storytelling, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Imagine the impact we could have together, your expertise and my platform, showing people why coral reefs matter and what they can do to help. The connection felt electric, like finding someone who understood both my passion for marine conservation and the frustration of watching critical environmental issues get ignored by mainstream media. Over the following weeks, Stella seemed genuinely interested in my work, visiting my lab to film behind-the-scenes content about coral propagation, interviewing me about sustainable seafood choices for her blog, even accompanying me on diving expeditions to document reef restoration sites for her Instagram stories. Her followers responded enthusiastically to the marine conservation content, with engagement rates spiking whenever she posted about ocean protection or sustainable fishing practices, and I felt proud knowing my research was reaching people who might never have cared about coral reefs otherwise. She had this talent for making complex scientific concepts accessible, turning my coral-spawning research into compelling narratives about hope and renewal, framing reef restoration as a love story between humans and the ocean that her audience found genuinely moving. But somewhere between the 6-month mark and our first anniversary, the dynamic shifted in ways I didn't initially recognize, like coral bleaching that starts slowly then accelerates until entire reef systems collapse. Stella's content strategy evolved from featuring our joint conservation efforts to focusing on higher-profile culinary collaborations with celebrity chefs and exclusive restaurant partnerships that offered better brand alignment and more lucrative sponsorship opportunities. The sustainable seafood angle became secondary to glamorous dining experiences, and my research transformed from featured content into background material that occasionally provided authenticity to her environmental brand positioning. The evening that would define everything began with my excitement about sharing the biggest professional achievement of my career, a $150,000 research grant from the National Science Foundation that would fund 3 years of groundbreaking coral restoration work and potentially revolutionize how we combat climate change impacts on marine ecosystems. This wasn't just professional validation, It was recognition from the scientific community that my coral propagation methods could actually make a difference in preserving reef systems from California to the Caribbean, opening doors to research positions at Woods Hole, Scripps, or the Australian Institute of Marine Science. For 2 weeks leading up to our 18-month anniversary dinner, I'd been explaining the grant's significance to Stella, how it represented the culmination of everything I'd worked toward since graduate school, the kind of breakthrough that could establish me as a leading voice in marine conservation. She'd seemed genuinely excited, posting enthusiastic content about celebrating her brilliant scientist boyfriend's amazing achievement and promising her followers an inside look at what it means to date someone changing the world through marine conservation. Her engagement seemed authentic, with comments about being proud to support someone making a real difference, and I felt grateful to have a partner who understood the importance of environmental work. I'd specifically chosen Luna Cafe for our celebration because it held deep symbolic importance, the same corner table where we'd shared our first meaningful conversation about ocean conservation 18 months earlier, where Stella had looked across the candlelit table and promised to help me change the world through science and storytelling. Her eyes bright with what I'd believed was genuine admiration for my work and commitment to our shared environmental mission. The reservation was for 6:30 p.m. on a Thursday evening, with champagne already ordered and a romantic weekend trip to Catalina Island planned as our anniversary gift, complete with diving excursions to observe the kelp forest restoration I'd been monitoring for 2 years. I'd even arranged for a private boat tour with the Marine Sanctuary Director, knowing Stella would appreciate the exclusive access for her content while genuinely sharing something I was passionate about, imagining her documenting our underwater adventures while learning about kelp forest ecosystems and their role in coastal protection. The whole weekend was designed to celebrate both our relationship milestone and my career breakthrough, combining romance with the marine conservation work that had brought us together in the first place. 3 hours I sat at that corner table, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in brilliant oranges and purples that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with ocean research in the first place, checking my phone every few minutes as concern gradually transformed into the sick realization that I'd been abandoned for something more important than our anniversary and my grant celebration combined. The champagne grew warm in its bucket while I watched Stella's Instagram stories pile up from some exclusive Hollywood rooftop club where she was posing with celebrity chefs she'd apparently just met at a Food Network event that had materialized out of nowhere, completely erasing our planned evening from her priorities. "Incredible night with culinary legends," she posted, tagging James Beard Award winners while I sat alone at a table set for two, initially worried something had happened to her, then slowly realizing I'd been deliberately abandoned for better networking opportunities that offered more glamorous content and higher-profile connections. Each story felt like a deliberate dismissal of our relationship, reducing my career milestone and our anniversary to something boring she'd upgraded from, like choosing VIP access over general admission or celebrity encounters over scientific achievements. When her text finally arrived at 9:47 p.m., it wasn't an apology or emergency explanation, but casual dismissal wrapped in false cheerfulness that revealed exactly how little our plans had meant to her, still waiting at the cafe. "Sorry, found more exciting plans with some amazing people. Rain check." The phrase, "more exciting plans," hit like a physical blow, reducing my research achievement and our anniversary to something tedious she'd replaced with celebrity chef encounters, and I stared at those words for a long moment while something fundamental shifted inside my chest. I typed back, "all good," and set my phone face down on the table, watching the last light fade over the ocean while I made the most important decision of our relationship, realizing that Stella hadn't just forgotten our anniversary dinner, she'd revealed exactly where I ranked in her list of priorities, somewhere below strangers with better networking potential and more valuable content opportunities. Over 18 months, I'd gradually transformed from Stella's boyfriend into her unpaid content assistant and primary financial supporter, funding roughly 80% of our shared expenses while she focused entirely on growing her influence through high-end restaurant collaborations and celebrity chef events that generated better engagement than marine conservation content. What started as occasional support for her blogging business had evolved into systematic subsidization of her entire lifestyle, with me covering rent, utilities, groceries, dining expenses, and even equipment purchases for her food photography, while she reinvested every dollar of sponsorship income back into building her brand presence and maintaining the glamorous image essential to securing higher-paying partnerships. The pattern of abandonment started subtly but became devastatingly clear through a series of moments that left me questioning my worth in what I believed was a genuine partnership built around shared environmental values and mutual support. Initially, the cancellations seemed reasonable, last-minute opportunities that any ambitious entrepreneur would prioritize, scheduling conflicts that successful content creators inevitably face when building their careers. But gradually, I realized these weren't isolated incidents but part of a systematic hierarchy where my importance ranked consistently below anyone offering better content, networking opportunities, or career advancement for her brand. 6 months into dating, I was presenting my coral restoration research at the International Marine Biology Conference in Monterey, the most important professional moment of my career to that point, with over 300 marine scientists gathered to hear breakthrough findings about reef regeneration techniques that could revolutionize conservation efforts worldwide. Stella had promised to be there supporting me from the front row, understanding how crucial this presentation was for establishing my reputation in the marine biology community and potentially securing future research funding that would advance both my career and our shared environmental mission. Instead, she disappeared the morning of my presentation for a last-minute collaboration with Chef Marcus Delacroix, a Michelin-starred restaurant owner in San Francisco who'd offered her exclusive access to document his new sustainable seafood menu for a major food magazine feature. "Babe, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she'd texted 20 minutes before my talk, while I was reviewing my notes and trying to calm my pre-presentation nerves. Chef Marcus personally invited me to document his ocean-to-table philosophy. "You understand, right? Your research will always be there, but this kind of access doesn't come around often." I understood perfectly. My life's work ranked below her latest content opportunity, even when that content supposedly aligned with the marine conservation values we'd bonded over initially. While I delivered groundbreaking findings about coral propagation methods to an empty seat I'd specifically reserved for her, Stella was posting Instagram stories about exclusive culinary experiences behind the scenes and learning from sustainability pioneers in the restaurant industry. Content that performed exceptionally well with her followers but left me feeling completely invisible in my own relationship. The professional abandonment stung, but what truly broke something inside me happened 3 months ago when my younger sister Emma was hospitalized after a serious car accident in Riverside, suffering traumatic brain injury that left her unconscious for days while doctors warned our family to prepare for the worst possible outcomes. Stella initially promised to drive me to the hospital, knowing I was too shaken to handle the 2-hour drive safely after receiving the call at 3 a.m. about Emma's condition, and I felt grateful to have a partner willing to support me through the most terrifying experience of my life. Instead, she vanished for a sponsored, culinary retreat in Napa Valley that she claimed was non-negotiable for my brand partnerships, leaving me to navigate the crisis alone while she posted ethereal content about farm-to-table enlightenment and finding inspiration in wine country's sustainable agriculture practices. For 5 days, while I spent sleepless nights in hospital waiting rooms, praying Emma would wake up and return to the vibrant person she'd always been, Stella documented gourmet meals and vineyard tours as if my family emergency was simply inconvenient timing for her content calendar. "I'm so sorry, baby, but this retreat was booked months ago and the sponsors are expecting specific deliverables," she'd explained via text while I sat beside Emma's unconscious form, holding her hand and wondering if she'd ever wake up. "You're strong enough to handle this, and I'll make it up to you when I get back. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for our careers." Sacrifices for our careers, except only one of us was making them, and they were always my sacrifices for her career advancement, never the reverse situation where her priorities might bend around my needs or family emergencies. I'd started tracking the pattern without initially realizing it, like collecting data points for a research study. The missed family dinners when Food Network executives called with collaboration opportunities, the abandoned weekend plans whenever celebrity chefs offered exclusive access to new restaurant openings, the constant rescheduling of our time together for career opportunities that somehow always involved glamorous locations, influential people, and content that would elevate her profile in the culinary influencer space. Each incident felt justified in isolation, but together they revealed a systematic prioritization system where I consistently ranked below professional opportunities, regardless of the personal significance of what she was abandoning. Stella had perfected the art of making me feel selfish for wanting basic consideration, framing every disappointment as my failure to support her ambitious dreams rather than her choice to prioritize strangers over the person supposedly closest to her. "You know how important building my brand is," she'd say whenever I expressed hurt about another cancellation. "I thought you understood that this is a critical time for establishing myself in the industry. If you really loved me, you'd want me to succeed." The emotional manipulation was subtle but effective, making me question whether expecting presence during important moments made me unsupportive rather than recognizing that consistently choosing career opportunities over relationship commitments revealed something fundamental about her priorities. The most painful part wasn't just being abandoned, it was watching her document these abandonments as professional triumphs, turning my loneliness into content about following your passion and choosing growth over comfort. Every Instagram post celebrating her latest culinary adventure served as a public reminder that I wasn't worth her presence during my most important moments, that whatever she was doing instead of being with me was automatically more valuable, more interesting, more worthy of her time and attention than our relationship or my achievements. "Living my best life with incredible people who inspire me to dream bigger." She'd caption photos from events she'd chosen over our plans, unconsciously communicating that I fell into the category of people who didn't inspire bigger dreams, who represented comfort rather than growth, stability rather than excitement. The contrast between her public enthusiasm for career opportunities and private dismissal of our relationship created a constant emotional dissonance that left me questioning my own worth and wondering if expecting basic partnership made me clingy rather than reasonable. My breakthrough research grant from the National Science Foundation represented 3 years of intensive work developing innovative coral restoration techniques that could revolutionize how we combat reef die-offs caused by climate change, securing $150,000 in funding that would launch my career trajectory and potentially save endangered reef systems from California to the Caribbean. This wasn't just professional validation or financial support. It was recognition from the scientific community that my coral propagation methods could actually make a measurable difference in preserving marine ecosystems for future generations, the kind of achievement that opens doors to research positions at Wood's Hole Oceanographic Institution, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, or the Australian Institute of Marine Science. The grant proposal had consumed 14 months of my life, requiring extensive field research, laboratory experiments, data analysis, and collaboration with marine biologists across 3 continents to demonstrate the viability of my coral spawning techniques under various environmental conditions. I'd spent countless nights in the lab monitoring coral fragments, documenting their adaptation to different temperature and acidity levels, proving that targeted intervention could help reef systems survive the ongoing ocean warming that threatened to destroy these crucial ecosystems within the next 2 decades. The research represented not just personal ambition but genuine hope for preserving biodiversity hotspots that support millions of marine species and protect coastal communities from storm surge and erosion. For 2 weeks leading up to our anniversary dinner, I'd been explaining the grant's significance to Stella, how it represented the culmination of everything I'd worked toward since graduate school, the validation that my unconventional approach to coral restoration could actually scale up to address global reef decline. She'd seemed genuinely excited, engaging with the technical details and asking thoughtful questions about how the funding would expand my research scope, what new equipment I could purchase, which international collaborations became possible with this level of financial support backing my work. "This is incredible, Ryan," she'd said while reviewing the grant notification letter, filming content about supporting partners who are literally changing the world through science. "You're going to be famous in the marine biology world. This could lead to everything: book deals, documentary features, speaking engagements at major conferences. I'm so proud to be with someone making such a massive impact." Her enthusiasm felt authentic, and she posted several stories about celebrating her brilliant scientist boyfriend's amazing achievement, promising her followers an inside look at what it means to date someone changing the world through marine conservation. I'd specifically chosen Luna Cafe for our celebration because it held deep symbolic importance in our relationship, the same corner table where we'd shared our first meaningful conversation about ocean conservation 18 months earlier, where Stella had looked across the candlelit table and promised to help me change the world through science and storytelling. Her eyes bright with what I'd believed was genuine admiration for my work and commitment to our shared environmental mission. The location represented the foundation of our connection, the moment when I'd believed we were building something meaningful around mutual respect for each other's work and shared values about protecting marine ecosystems. The reservation was for 6:30 p.m. on a Thursday evening, with Dom Perignon already ordered and a romantic weekend trip to Catalina Island planned as our anniversary gift, complete with diving excursions to observe the kelp forest restoration I'd been monitoring for 2 years as part of my broader marine ecosystem research. I'd arranged for a private boat tour with Dr. Sarah Chen, the marine sanctuary director who'd become a mentor during my graduate work, knowing Stella would appreciate both the exclusive access for content creation and the opportunity to document real conservation work in action rather than just restaurant sustainability initiatives. The entire weekend was designed to celebrate both our relationship milestone and my career breakthrough, combining romance with the marine conservation work that had supposedly brought us together initially, imagining Stella documenting our underwater adventures while learning about kelp forest ecosystems and their crucial role in coastal protection and carbon sequestration. I'd even prepared talking points about how coral and kelp restoration work together to create resilient marine environments, thinking she could use the content to educate her followers about comprehensive ocean conservation rather than just focusing on sustainable seafood choices. Instead, while I sat at our reserved corner table watching the sunset paint the Pacific in brilliant oranges and purples that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with ocean research, Stella was posting Instagram stories from an exclusive Hollywood rooftop club with celebrity chefs she'd met through a Food Network event that had apparently materialized out of nowhere. The contrast couldn't have been more stark, me alone at a table set for two, celebrating the biggest achievement of my scientific career in solitude, while she networked with culinary celebrities who offered better content opportunities and more glamorous associations than a marine biologist with a research grant. Incredible night with culinary legends, she posted, tagging James Beard Award winners including Chef Isabella Rodriguez, who just opened a $15 million flagship restaurant, and Chef David Kim, whose Netflix series had made him a household name in the food world. Each story showed her laughing with these culinary celebrities, clinking glasses of expensive champagne, posing for photos that would elevate her profile in ways that my scientific achievement never could, regardless of its potential environmental impact or the years of work it represented. I checked my phone every few minutes, initially worried something had happened to her, that some emergency had prevented her from joining our planned celebration, then slowly realizing that this wasn't an emergency but a deliberate choice to prioritize networking opportunities over our anniversary and my grant celebration. The champagne grew warm in its bucket as I watched her stories pile up, each post driving home the reality that my career milestone ranked below her impromptu celebrity encounters, that the breakthrough I'd worked toward for years was less important than unexpected opportunities to advance her influencer status. The restaurant staff began giving me sympathetic looks as the evening progressed, probably wondering why someone would sit alone for hours at a table obviously set for a romantic dinner, and I felt the familiar shame that came with being abandoned in public spaces, the embarrassment of explaining to servers that my dining companion had been delayed indefinitely. Other couples around us were celebrating anniversaries, promotions, engagements, sharing intimate conversations over candlelit dinners while I sat alone with my phone, watching my girlfriend prioritize strangers over the person supposedly closest to her. When her text finally arrived at 9:47 p.m., it wasn't an apology or emergency explanation, but casual dismissal wrapped in false cheerfulness that revealed exactly how little our plans had meant to her priorities. Still waiting at the cafe. Sorry, found more exciting plans with some amazing people. Rain check. The phrase, more exciting plans, hit like a physical blow, reducing my research achievement and our anniversary to something boring she'd upgraded from, like choosing VIP access over general admission or celebrity encounters over scientific achievements that might actually benefit the planet. The message included photos from the rooftop club showing her posing with the celebrity chefs, looking radiant and engaged in ways I rarely saw when we were together, as if being around influential people brought out energy and enthusiasm she couldn't summon for our relationship or my accomplishments. The body language in those photos told the complete story. She was exactly where she wanted to be, with exactly the people she found most interesting, living exactly the life she preferred over quiet dinners celebrating scientific breakthroughs with someone who loved her. I stared at those words for a long moment while something fundamental shifted inside my chest, realizing that Stella hadn't just forgotten our anniversary dinner or accidentally double-booked herself. She'd made a conscious decision that networking with celebrity chefs was more valuable than celebrating the biggest achievement of my career, more important than honoring our relationship milestone, more exciting than spending time with the person she claimed to love and support. Rather than confronting Stella with the white-hot anger burning through my chest, I chose a methodical approach that reflected both my scientific training and the crystalline clarity I'd gained about our relationship's true dynamics after sitting alone at that table for 3 hours, watching her prioritize celebrity chef encounters over our anniversary and my career breakthrough. The following week, while Stella was in Miami for a sponsored food festival posting content about culinary innovation and sustainable dining partnerships, with zero acknowledgement of how she'd abandoned our celebration, I executed the most decisive plan of my adult life with the precision I usually reserved for coral transplantation procedures. I secured a beachfront apartment in Encinitas, 30 minutes north of my lab but a world away from the Santa Monica lifestyle Stella required for her brand image, arranged professional movers for the following Saturday, and systematically extracted myself from every shared commitment and financial obligation we'd accumulated over 18 months of what I'd mistakenly believed was partnership. The apartment was smaller than what we'd shared but faced the ocean directly, with a deck perfect for morning coffee and evening research review, plus rent I could easily afford on my salary alone without constantly calculating whether I could cover Stella's portion again this month. The financial extraction alone revealed how completely I'd been subsidizing her lifestyle. I was paying $2,400 monthly for our Santa Monica apartment while she contributed $600, covering our entire $180 monthly utility bill, spending $800 on groceries while she occasionally bought organic produce for content creation, and handling every dinner check whenever we ate out, which happened frequently because cooking at home didn't generate the restaurant content her followers expected. Beyond basic living expenses, I'd been funding her equipment purchases, professional photography sessions, travel costs for content creation, and even her designer wardrobe because maintaining a certain image was essential for securing brand partnerships with higher-end restaurants and culinary companies. I transferred ownership of our shared Netflix, Spotify, and Adobe Creative Suite accounts to her name while removing my payment information, canceled the joint gym membership I'd been paying for while she attended maybe twice monthly when she needed fitness content, and quietly withdrew from the lease on our Santa Monica place with 60 days' notice that would coincide perfectly with my complete disappearance from her life. The process felt like dismantling an elaborate scientific experiment, carefully separating variables that had become entangled over time, documenting each step to ensure nothing remained connected that could pull me back into her orbit. Without my substantial financial support covering roughly 80% of her monthly expenses, Stella's carefully curated food blogging lifestyle began collapsing with mathematical precision, as her actual earning capacity of around $2,800 monthly couldn't sustain the $3,200 rent on her current apartment, frequent culinary travel for content creation, designer wardrobe essential to her brand image, and expensive restaurant visits that generated her most engaging posts. The sponsorship income she earned was inconsistent, dependent on engagement rates and brand partnership availability, with most payments arriving 60 to 90 days after content delivery, creating cash flow problems that my steady scientist salary had previously buffered. Meanwhile, my life flourished in ways I hadn't experienced since graduate school, starting with joining a competitive sailing crew that raced every weekend along the California coast, rediscovering the ocean as a source of joy rather than just professional focus. The sailing community welcomed me immediately, appreciating my marine expertise while introducing me to the pure pleasure of working with wind and water, of being part of a team where everyone contributed equally and success depended on collective effort rather than individual networking or social media presence. Through the sailing community, I met Elena Vasquez, a marine veterinarian specializing in sea turtle rehabilitation who shared my genuine commitment to ocean conservation and insisted on splitting all date expenses because equal partnership means equal investment in building something together. Our first conversation lasted 6 hours as we discussed marine ecosystem recovery strategies, and when I mentioned my coral restoration research, her eyes lit up with the same enthusiasm I'd mistakenly thought I'd seen in Stella. Except Elena's interest was rooted in scientific curiosity rather than content opportunities. "Your propagation techniques could revolutionize habitat restoration," she said over dinner at a modest seafood place she'd chosen and insisted on paying half the bill for. "Have you considered applying similar methods to kelp forest regeneration? The symbiotic relationship between coral and kelp ecosystems could create more resilient marine environments." The contrast was staggering. Where Stella had seen my work as background material for her sustainable dining brand, Elena viewed it as genuine conservation that could impact marine ecosystems globally, asking technical questions that demonstrated real understanding rather than surface-level interest designed to generate content. Elena had completed her doctorate in marine veterinary medicine at UC Davis, specializing in treating injured sea turtles and marine mammals, with field experience in Costa Rica, Australia, and Hawaii that gave her first-hand knowledge of reef degradation and the urgent need for restoration techniques like mine. When she talked about her work, I felt the same passion and dedication I brought to coral research, recognizing someone who'd chosen marine conservation for intrinsic rather than extrinsic motivations, who found fulfillment in the work itself rather than the social media opportunities it might provide. Our relationship developed naturally around shared interests and genuine compatibility rather than the financial dependence and content creation that had defined my time with Stella. Elena insisted on alternating who paid for dates, contributed equally to groceries when we cooked together, and never expected me to fund her lifestyle or career advancement. She had her own apartment, her own car, her own savings account, approaching our relationship as an equal partnership rather than a financial opportunity disguised as romance. I blocked Stella on every platform without announcement or explanation, changed my phone number, and informed our mutual friends that I preferred no updates about her situation, creating the kind of complete radio silence that forces someone to confront their choices without the comfort of knowing how their decisions affected you. The digital erasure felt liberating, like clearing experimental data from a failed study to start fresh with better methodology, removing all traces of someone who'd never appreciated what she had access to. The moving process itself was therapeutic, packing 18 months of shared possessions while recognizing how little of our life together had actually belonged to both of us. Most items were either mine or hers, with very few genuine shared purchases that represented mutual investment in building something together. Even our furniture told the story of unequal contribution, with me having purchased the couch, dining table, and bedroom set while she'd contributed decorative items that photographed well for her apartment content but served little practical purpose. By the time Stella returned from Miami, I'd completely vanished from her world with surgical precision, leaving no forwarding address, no mutual connections willing to share information about my whereabouts, no digital footprint she could follow to understand what had happened or attempt to re-establish contact. The silence was intentional and complete, designed to force her to confront the consequences of her choices without the possibility of manipulating me back into subsidizing her lifestyle or accepting explanations that might temporarily resolve her immediate financial crisis. 14 months after my complete disappearance from Stella's world, she appeared at my Encinitas apartment building on a foggy March morning, having tracked down my address through mutual friends who believed they were facilitating a romantic reunion rather than enabling someone to pursue a man who'd deliberately chosen invisibility. I spotted her through my apartment's ocean view windows at 7:30 a.m. while reviewing research data over coffee, watching her stand in the lobby looking drastically different from the polished food blogger I'd dated, less curated, more desperate, wearing simple jeans and a plain navy sweater instead of the carefully coordinated outfits that had been essential to her brand image. When she called through the building's intercom, her voice carried a trembling quality I'd never heard before, stripped of the confident tone she used for sponsored content and networking events. Ryan, it's Stella. I know this is unexpected, but I really need to talk to you. Please. Despite every instinct screaming to ignore her completely, some part of me needed to understand what possible justification she could offer after my crystal-clear exit from her life, so I buzzed her up and waited by my door, curious about what story she'd constructed to explain away 18 months of systematic abandonment. She climbed the stairs slowly, and when I opened the door, I saw someone who looked like she'd been running on empty for months, thinner than I remembered, with tired eyes that suggested genuine stress rather than the glamorous exhaustion she used to post about after exclusive culinary events. You look good, she said, taking in my apartment's minimalist coastal aesthetic and the research papers scattered across my dining table. Really good. Happy. I am happy, I replied, not inviting her to sit down, maintaining the kind of polite distance you'd offer a stranger who'd knocked on the wrong door. She launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech about therapy, personal growth, and realizing what she'd lost, but her words felt hollow, like marketing copy for a life change rather than genuine remorse. I've been working with a therapist for 8 months now, really examining my priorities and patterns, she said, hands gesturing as if presenting content to an invisible camera. I realize I was so focused on building my career that I lost sight of what actually mattered. You were the most real thing in my life, and I threw it away for validation from people who didn't actually care about me. You didn't throw anything away, I said calmly, watching her face process my unexpected response. You made deliberate choices that revealed your true priorities. I just chose to build a life with someone who values me appropriately. But I do value you, she insisted, her voice cracking slightly. I always did. I was just confused about how to balance everything, and now I see how wrong I was. We could try again, start fresh. I've changed completely. Stella, I said gently, you didn't make mistakes. You consistently chose what felt more exciting, more profitable, more glamorous than spending time with me. That wasn't confusion, that was your actual preference system in action. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, with her cycling through every argument imaginable, promises to change, claims about realizing my worth, offers to completely restructure her career around our relationship, even suggestions that we could start over with better communication and clearer boundaries. She mentioned her current struggles, how her follower count had dropped, how she'd had to move back in with her parents after losing her Santa Monica apartment, how she was working part-time at a local restaurant while trying to rebuild her online presence. I see you're with someone else, she said, gesturing toward photos of Elena and me on my refrigerator. She looks nice. How long have you been together? 11 months, I said, watching her process the timeline. Elena's a marine veterinarian. We work on conservation projects together. The contrast between our relationships couldn't have been more obvious. Where Stella had seen my work as background material for her content, Elena viewed it as meaningful collaboration. So you've replaced me, she said, entitlement creeping into her voice. Found someone who fits your life better. I found someone who chooses to be present, I corrected. Someone who doesn't need to be convinced that my achievements matter or that our relationship deserves priority over networking opportunities. Her eyes filled with frustrated tears. I know I hurt you, but people make mistakes. Doesn't that count for something? Your career didn't require you to abandon me at the hospital when my sister was in a coma, I said quietly. It didn't require you to miss my grant celebration for celebrity chef encounters. Those were choices that revealed what mattered most to you. When she finally left, walking slowly back to her car with slumped shoulders and none of the confident energy that used to define her presence, I felt only quiet satisfaction that I'd chosen correctly 14 months ago, and gratitude that someone else's inability to appreciate me had led me to someone who absolutely did.